The candles flickered nervously, their orange glow reflecting in the window where snow fell like shattered stars. Claire sat alone at the small cafe table, her fingers tracing circles on the rim of her untouched coffee cup. The winter outside felt quieter than usual, or maybe it was just the silence inside her. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry this time. Not over another date. Not over another disappointment. But there she was again, all dressed up, pretending not to care that she'd been sitting alone for 40 minutes. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beautiful ways life can surprise you when you least expect it, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that touch the heart. Claire had built walls around her heart, so tall that even she couldn't see over them anymore. Years of failed relationships had made her cautious enough to almost cancel the blind date her friend had set up for her. He's a single dad, her friend had said. A little rough around the edges, but kind. You might like him. Claire had smiled politely, but inside she'd rolled her eyes. She didn't want complicated. She didn't want someone who came with baggage. She wanted simplicity, peace, and maybe a little bit of magic. But when she'd looked in the mirror before leaving home, she'd seen the faintest spark of hope in her reflection, the kind she hadn't seen in years. So she went. Now, sitting in the quiet cafe, that hope was fading minute by minute. The waitress gave her a sympathetic smile as she passed, and Claire returned it with one of those small, brave smiles that said, "I'm fine," even when she wasn't. She checked her phone again, no messages. The snow outside had begun to fall harder, blurring the world into a soft white haze. Maybe he got stuck in traffic. Maybe he forgot. Or maybe this was just another cruel joke the universe liked to play on people like her. Just as she began to gather her purse to leave, the door of the cafe opened, letting in a rush of cold air and the sound of tiny boots scuffing against the floor. Claire looked up. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, stood there in a pink coat and a knitted hat too big for her head. Her cheeks were red from the cold, her eyes wide and searching. She looked around the cafe for a moment before her gaze landed on Claire. Without hesitation, the little girl walked right up to her table, clutching a small stuffed rabbit in one hand. "Are you Miss Claire?" she asked softly. Claire blinked, startled. "Yes," she managed. The little girl smiled shyly and set her stuffed rabbit on the table. "My daddy's sorry he's late," she said, her voice sweet and serious. "He said the snow made the car sleepy, but he's coming. He told me to tell you that he didn't forget." For a moment, Claire couldn't find her words. The little girl climbed into the chair across from her, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, setting her mittens beside the candle. Her presence was disarming, like a warm light in the coldest corner of the room. Claire smiled gently, her heart softening in ways she hadn't expected. "Well," she said, "I'm glad someone came to keep me company." The little girl giggled, kicking her snow boots under the table. "Daddy says sometimes it's okay to be late if you're bringing someone special." Something about that line tugged at Claire's chest. She found herself laughing softly, relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. The waitress brought over a cup of hot chocolate for the little girl, and the two of them sat there together, talking about snowflakes, bunnies, and the magic of marshmallows that melt just right. It was the most genuine conversation Claire had had in months. Time passed, and the cafe began to empty. The snow outside grew thicker, wrapping the town in silence. Claire glanced toward the door, expecting any minute for the mysterious father to appear, to smile, to apologize, to explain. But minutes stretched into an hour, and still no one came. The little girl didn't seem worried, though. She drew pictures on a napkin with the crayons the waitress had found for her, little stick figures of a woman with curly hair and a man holding a child's hand. When Claire asked who they were, the girl answered matter-of-factly, "That's you. And that's Daddy. We're at the park. It's sunny." The words made something ache deep inside her. Claire couldn't explain it, but she felt a strange pull, like destiny was sitting right across from her, wearing a pink coat and sipping hot chocolate through a straw. Finally, the door opened again. A tall man entered, brushing snow from his shoulders, his face flushed from the cold. He looked around frantically until his eyes landed on the little girl, and then on Claire. His expression softened instantly, relief washing over him. "I am so sorry," he said breathlessly as he hurried over. "The car wouldn't start, and then the snow. I didn't mean to keep you waiting." Claire could tell from the exhaustion in his voice that it wasn't an excuse. It was the truth. His eyes were warm, a little tired, but sincere. And when he smiled at her, something inside her, that long frozen part, began to thaw. He introduced himself as Daniel, and as he helped his daughter into her coat, she noticed how gentle he was, how patient. There was no rush, no irritation, only quiet care. When he finally sat down across from Claire, he looked at her with an expression that said he knew exactly how ridiculous the situation must have seemed. But then he smiled again, and somehow, that was enough to make it all okay. They talked for hours. About work, about the snow, about life after heartbreak. Daniel told her that his wife had passed away 3 years ago. He hadn't been on a date since. It's hard, he admitted, to let someone new into a life that used to feel complete. Claire understood that better than he knew. She had lost someone too, not to death, but to betrayal and time. They talked about healing, about trying again when it felt impossible. As the cafe lights dimmed, Daniel looked at his daughter, who had fallen asleep in her chair, her head resting on the table beside the empty cup of cocoa. He smiled softly. She insisted on meeting you, he said. She said she dreamed about you, said you'd be wearing blue and sitting by a window with candles. Claire's breath caught. She looked down at her navy blue dress and the flickering candlelight between them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The world outside was silent except for the soft fall of snow. Sometimes life doesn't give you what you planned for. Sometimes it gives you what your heart secretly needs. Even if you don't know it. In that little cafe, surrounded by snow and candlelight, two lonely souls, and one small dreamer, found something that didn't need words to explain. They found warmth. They found possibility. Weeks later, Daniel called again, and then again. What began as cautious coffee dates turned into walks in the park, laughter-filled dinners, and eventually, quiet moments that felt like home. The little girl adored Claire, always insisting she sit next to her, always drawing new pictures of the three of them together. One evening, months later, they returned to the same cafe where it all began. The snow was falling just as it had that first night, soft and silent. Daniel reached across the table, his fingers brushing Claire's hand. "You know," he said with a smile, "she told me I'd find you here again someday. Said you'd be waiting for me." Claire looked out the window, her heart full, and whispered, "Maybe I was." And for the first time in years, she wasn't pretending to smile. She really meant it. Sometimes, love doesn't walk through the door on time. Sometimes it sends a little messenger in a pink coat, carrying a stuffed rabbit and a message that says, "Don't give up yet." If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who still believes in love after loss, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the beauty of second chances.